All right. It is just after 8:30. I want to make sure I respect your guys' time, so we'll get started right now. Thank you for joining the first of our 12-part webinar series. And our focus in this series is to prepare you to kickstart your PT career. So this session is tackling the three biggest challenges you're likely to face as a new PT. Specifically what you need to know the day before you get your first day on the job, and there's a lot more beyond that. So I'd love to get started by taking you on a brief journey back in time. The year was 2006. I was in my final semester at the University of Delaware's PT program. I was doing my final affiliation, which was incredible because I was a clinic instructor to two first-year students at the same time that my clinic instructor was helping me learn. I felt super prepared to start out on my own and start my first job, and two big hurdles stood in my way. First, I had to pass the boards, and no matter how well prepared I was honestly a little bit nervous. The second was deciding which company to join. I applied in 3 places and got 3 offers, but I was torn about where to go. Fast forward a few months, and I'm relieved to tell you that I did in fact pass the boards. I also chose the company I'd work for, and in retrospect, I chose wrong. I'd been taught at Delaware to seek out an organization that cared about evidence-informed practice, encouraged residency and fellowship, and maintained connection to the APTA. Instead, I found myself treating 100 patients a week, surrounded by therapists using ultrasound, hot packs, and TENS for every patient. I was 2 months into my first job, and I genuinely questioned whether I had chosen the right career path. I started looking for a new job right away and moved with my then fiance to Reston, Virginia, to be close to her family. When I got to Virginia, I was caught by a recruiter, and I told them my story of a disappointing start to what I was hoping was my lifelong career. I told him what I wanted, how I wanted to learn, and really wanted to truly get better so I could help people and have mentors like I had at University of Delaware. The recruiter laughed and said, well, there's only one place like that around here. And he sent me to the Jackson Clinics. So this is my first picture from the Jackson Clinics website in my first year with the company. So let's pause here for a second. Appreciate the sweet rugby shirt. And then I do need to give you a brief public service announcement. In your first professional photo that's going to go on a website that patients are going to see, don't wear a rugby shirt. It did not instill much confidence in my patients. Can you guys see my slide switching? Okay, great. So I got a lot of questions from my patients, which you can see on the screen there, asking if I was old enough to have a driver's license, let alone a license to practice physical therapy. Luckily for me, I had 2 incredible mentors to help me redeem myself. The first one is a therapist by the name of Ken Herbal. This man is a verified wizard of physical therapy. He has magic hands and an uncanny ability to make every patient believe he can help them. I desperately wanted to learn from him and took every opportunity before work, after work, during the day to pick his brain and ask him for help. I was literally like his annoying little brother that he never wanted. The other mentor is Richard Jackson of the Jackson Clinics. When I interviewed with Jackson Clinics, Richard called me from Australia, where he was teaching with Jenny McConnell at a World Congress for Physical Therapy. We had a 2-hour phone call. I can't imagine what his international phone bill was. And he laid out his vision for what our profession could really be. I, of course, being 1 year out, had the audacity to ask/demand that I work with Ken Herbal, who I had just met, and that I could go with Richard to combine sections to meet Jenny McConnell and Stanley Paris and Jeff Maitland and the rest of Richard's famous PT friends. And his answer was, be careful what you wish for, because around here you're likely to get it. So here I am in year 2 with the Jackson Clinics. At that point, I was a brand new clinic director. I was a co-director of our newly accredited orthopedic residency program way back then. I had just passed the OCS and I was newly married. I was pretty much knocking out all the major life milestones back to back. I had slightly upgraded my work wardrobe thanks to some tough love from Richard Jackson. For Christmas that year, he gifted me an iron for my clothes and some shoe polish. He thought it was pretty funny. I took the hint. So then a few years later, I tried on a sport coat since I was trying to live up to my new position as Director of Clinical Development. We were launching a brand new educational continuum for our therapists, and I was taking on administrative responsibilities on top of my caseload and clinic director job. I had taken our orthopedic residency program and transitioned it to one of our star residency grads. I was a brand new dad with a 6-month-old at home and deep circles forming under my eyes. At that moment in my career, I dedicated myself once again to learning as much as I possibly could, especially from Richard Jackson. That meant a bunch of extra unpaid time, joining him on stage at CSM, joining the private practice section, pursuing my MBA so I could get the most out of my collaboration with Richard. And also that meant going to Ethiopia to help Richard start the first DPT program in the continent. And then Richard and his wife and business partner, Anna Jackson, invited me to join them as an owner of the Jackson Clinics. My first thought, this calls for a pocket square. So here I am, year 16 of my journey as PT, reflecting on all that's happened since my last semester at University of Delaware, and hoping to help each of you guys start your journeys off in ways that will help you reach your goals, some of which you might not even know yet. I had no idea that I was going to be a partner in a business, and I didn't even think that that's what I wanted, but here I am. So throughout this 12-part webinar series, I'm going to share my story, little bits here and there. I'm going to mix in quite a bit of research, so you know I'm not just making stuff up. And I'll do my best to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the beautiful journey you're about to embark on. So now that you know my PT origin story, I would love to break the participation ice by having you shout out your PT school in the chat box. In the spirit of March Madness, feel free to talk trash if any of your rival schools show up on the board. I think I am safely out of harm's way as a fighting blue hen. I doubt any of you guys are threatened by our scary mascot or our basketball team. So let's see, where are you guys from? Shenandoah, Radford. Oh, Badgers, okay. University of Montana. Shenandoah again. Shenandoah's representing VCU. I love it. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you guys. My sneaky goal here was to try to get your fingers warmed up so you're not afraid to start typing in the chat. I don't see any, yeah, Radford is representing. I don't see any trash talking yet. You're being polite. In the second or third webinar, I'm sure you're going to let it fly a little more. All right, so now let's get you back in the chat box. Or if you're feeling brave, feel free to raise your hand and unmute. What I'd love to hear from you guys is, what are the challenges you think you're likely to face when transitioning from SPT to DPT? Specifically, what are you worried about? What are you nervous about? I see proper billing. That is very stressful, actually, as a student. I remember that, absolutely. Choosing the right PT, philosophy to follow. Insurance, yes. Work-life balance. You guys are pretty much laying out our entire 12-part curriculum, so this is perfect. See, I got a couple more coming in. Fear of not knowing things. Perfect. Yeah, that's coming up today. We'll talk about that. Excellent. Feel free to keep the chat going. I'm going to address a number of those things in this presentation, and certainly as we go through this webinar series. My job is to hit all those highlights for you so you come out as well prepared as you possibly can be. So let's take a look at the research. The first one that we see from the research is stress. Stress, anxiety, burnout. Those are the typical things we actually are seeing as humans across the globe right now, with stress, anxiety, feelings of burnout being the #1 cause of disability in the United States. Personally, I can attest to how difficult it is to work full-time, had family obligations, obviously, as I transitioned from SPT to DPT, and all the other life stuff that comes along. Full-time adulting is no joke, and it comes at you pretty fast. This past Saturday, I literally just spent my entire day doing taxes. So no wonder my website photos deteriorated so much over the past 16 years. So our focus today on the stress, anxiety, burnout is to help you manage that transition So we're going to go through the solutions to these problems here in just a moment. Another item from the research, and one of you guys brought it up, was this concept of imposter syndrome. So in my first job, which I mentioned, with all the hot packs and ultrasound and tens, I did not feel like an imposter. I felt like I was just living in a bag of lies, basically, about our profession. However, when I started working in the Jackson clinics next to Ken Herbal, the world's best physical therapist, I definitely started to question my abilities. Rugby shirt aside, I simply couldn't do what Ken could do for his patients. And honestly, I still feel that way sometimes, especially working with Richard, Jackson, and Anna. And the research suggests that I'm not alone and that many early professionals, especially high achievers, feel this way sometimes. The good news is you are not a fraud, and I will tell you why in just a couple slides. The last one is the last major one, the top three. The third one is paying expenses, especially student loans, because I know that's a big stressor for a lot of you. A few days ago, actually, I got a letter from my undergraduate university asking me if I would donate some money to school. And I was laughing that, like, I've been donating monthly for the last 20 years in my student loan repayments, and I'm honestly, authentically still paying those off. So lucky for them, I am a frequent donor. According to the research, I am not the only DPT with student loans to pay off. It is a big concern for many of you guys, but again, fear not, there are solutions. So now the top three challenges have been introduced. We've laid those out. Let's talk about how to deal with them. So I'm going to build you a totally hypothetical case study. Imagine an overzealous brand new DPT who just finished their degree, let's say at the University of Delaware. They arrive early for their first day of work, let's say February 1st, 2007. And they eagerly tackle the day, and then the next day, and the next week, and the next month, and the month after that. They start waking up a little bit later, losing a little bit of bounce in their step, wondering if the work treadmill just keeps going forever. And then his fiance, the teacher, announces that spring break is coming. Spring break, that's awesome. Spring break is exactly what we need. But for the first time in the past 20 years, there is no such thing as spring break. And then the doom spiral began. Now, I'm sure you can imagine this was a totally hypothetical case scenario, not at all based on real people or events. However, grieving the loss of spring break while dealing with symptoms of burnout is an example of a possible stressor that a new DPT might face. A silly example, but one that I personally genuinely mourned. So one of the ways that I've coped with stress and anxiety and burnout in my own life is actually a very research-supported activity, and it only takes 5 minutes. It is called interrogative self-talk. So the basic premise here is that affirming statements like, I'm strong, I can do it, I will persevere, actually do have value. So your parents who have taught you how to do that were telling you something helpful, but they're actually not all that helpful in reducing stress or anxiety. Interrogative self-talk, on the other hand, takes a very different approach. Instead of saying, I'm strong, interrogative self-talk says you should ask yourself, have I demonstrated in the past that I am strong? Instead of saying, I can do it, I ask myself, have I been successful doing difficult things in the past? Instead of saying, I will persevere, I ask myself, have I persevered through challenges before? So the big difference is from telling yourself something to try and reinforce it and asking yourself something. In the process of asking, you forced your brain to recall scenarios in the past where you demonstrated useful personal characteristics to overcome challenges. It also primes your brain for the context and the behaviors that led to it. It creates a strategy of how you might do it this time as well. And then, of course, stress and anxiety go down, at least compared to just the supportive statements, because your brain is now formulating a strategy to move forward. It is absolutely fascinating research. You should definitely look it up if you're interested in it. And it has really helped me in my own life and will hopefully help you as well. Just 5 minutes, ask yourself questions instead of telling yourself these supportive statements. Another super easy way to reduce stress and anxiety and burnout, at least for me, is to rely on coping behaviors like prioritizing tasks, setting goals, and using detailed calendars. Those who work with me know that I am, let's say, pathologically organized in my Microsoft Outlook. So that's our email system. I've got everything organized, files, folders, all sorts of stuff. I love checklists. They truly give me comfort as a person. So these coping behaviors of organization, prioritizing tasks, setting goals are very, very well supported in the research as well to help reduce stress and anxiety. I have found, at least personally, that the simplest way to start is to spend 5 minutes every night with discipline and choose the top 3 things I want to accomplish tomorrow. I have to pick things that are reasonable. I can't be like, I'm going to cure cancer tomorrow, because that's not something I can do tomorrow. And I have to be sure to plan out when in the day I will work on each thing. So the when piece is actually a critical piece in the research. If I don't schedule those times and treat them like they're super important appointments or meetings, they won't get done. And the research supports that same thing. Instead, other pressing things that aren't nearly as important, but they seem pressing, they'll distract me and they'll take over the time that I was trying to dedicate to my most important task. And it seems pretty simple, right? But it's something that I never did with discipline until 2-3 years into my practice. And once I did, my stress and anxiety went way down. With some practice, with some discipline, it actually does become simple and can help you right now. You don't need to wait until you become a DPT. My favorite way to cope with stress, anxiety, and burnout is self-care. So I've learned the hard way that self-care must be scheduled or it will definitely be neglected. And in the research, self-care is actually a very open-ended term. It can mean very different things to different people. For me personally, exercise is my primary means of self-care, especially when I've got like Offspring radio or something like that playing in the back. I can really just relax, get some endorphins, some serotonin pumping, and I feel much better. But I'm also an avid fisherman, and I feel totally restored after a day on the water. For my wife, time with close friends is her primary mechanism for self-care. Whatever it is for you, the key in the research appears to be scheduling it ahead of time. That way you can complete it frequently and with discipline. I keep trying to convince my wife that because of the research, I need to go fishing this weekend, but so far she hasn't bought it. I think I'm going to keep just piling on studies and see what happens. So let's pause here a moment. I want to poll the audience. You guys have been listening for a couple minutes here, but let's get those chat fingers warmed up again. I would love for you to put in the chat or raise your hand and share if you want to do that. What is your most important self-care activity? And when do you plan to schedule it in your day or week? Because remember, it's just as important right now as it will be when you're a DPT. So let's see some of those comments come through. Working out, trying to schedule every day. That's great. The research would suggest you need to pick an exact time of day as well. So I love that. I would add a little more specificity to it. Exercise at 5 a.m. every day. You're better than me. I got 5:30 and I'm dragging, man. Painting 6 p.m. on Saturdays. I love that. Is that like painting your house or like painting like abstract art or something in between? Cooking every day after work. That's fantastic. Time talking with significant others, 7 p.m. every day. Fantastic. Athletic activity, exercise schedule between 5 and 7. Fantastic. Not surprisingly, a bunch of PTs, soon to be newly minted doctors of physical therapy, choose exercise as their primary self-care. I love that. Hot yoga during the winter months, especially during the winter months. I love that. Very good. Again, feel free to keep typing these. This is really, really great. I appreciate. I can't be the one who zones out playing video games. No, absolutely not. So Lucas is actually one of the top video gamers in the world in his particular game. So I'm sure he gets a lot of pleasure out of that. Exercise early morning and you are not alone. That's fantastic. All right. Excellent interaction, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's keep going. So imposter syndrome. This was one that you guys brought up. Although I was clearly not as good at PT as my mentor, Ken, I made up for that with passion and dedication to my patients and to self-improvement. The result, surprisingly, at least to me, was that patients did get better. Then I learned a little bit more, and they got better faster, and they got better more completely. And eventually, I became very good at caring for the patients that came my way. But only later did I realize that I was never actually an imposter, because I authentically cared for my patients and I did my best to help them from day one. Did I have more to learn? Of course, I still do and will forever. Needing to learn more never goes away, but that doesn't make you an imposter. Getting comfortable with the concept that needing to learn more is a forever thing really can help you thrive in your first year. And it helped me thrive in my first year with TJC. Although I couldn't do what Ken did right away, my patients still trusted me and got behind me. And I learned quickly and was able to catch up to him after a couple of years. I was also helped immensely by the formal orientation programs, the well-constructed mentorship programs, and the residency and fellowship programs that we have in our company. I got a 2-week long orientation where I didn't treat patients at all. I simply learned our EMR system, got comfortable in the role, met the team, got used to the workflow, that sort of thing. Then after that, I got formal structured mentorship for 6 months and had the opportunity to participate in residency, fellowship, and unlimited con ed to help me shake off any lingering self-doubt that I had early in my career. And that's honestly why people join us today, is for that structure in that organization. I think everybody feels a little bit of self-doubt, but with reframing that, as long as you care deeply about your patients and you want to get better, and as long as you're putting in that time to improve, especially with great structured organization and mentorship, then you aren't an imposter. Whatever setting you choose in your first job, though, please take your time to assess the quality and formality of programs like these. You have to be positive that you have the support and guidance you need to build the confidence and competence you're looking for quickly. I made that mistake of choosing the wrong clinic in my first job. So when I was looking in Virginia, I made sure I got it right the second time around. So now let's talk about money, a very hot topic, and I'm sure you'll have plenty of questions about this. PT education is expensive. Like me, many SPTs carry debt from undergrad and graduate into their post-professional life. On top of that, some of you might have a spouse, family, other expenses. Before you jump into building your budget, though, I would like to try, at least, to reframe your thinking. Rather than asking yourself, how do I make as much as I can in my first job? I'd like you to flip the thinking for a second and say, how can I maximize the value I receive through my entire career? That lifetime value question has a much better correlation, not only with job satisfaction and longevity of remaining in the field, but also the concept of what you've accomplished in your career. Because value is more than just money. It's also a sense of purpose, a sense of pride and accomplishment. Even if you just want to look at it initially from the financial frame only, then frame it this way. How can you maximize your career's worth of earnings while keeping the quality of work, what your experience, what you're hoping for? By asking that question, likely your first choice might change. For example, joining a residency right out of school might be a lower pay in your first year, but you're going to get a 10% raise depending on where you work. At Jackson Clinics, we give a 10% raise after finishing in your second year. By the second year, you've more than made up the deficit from the first year, and your lifetime career earnings have now catapulted much higher. So your first choice on finances may not always match your career trajectory earnings. So try to frame it that way. So as you can imagine, a short-term money grab can be catastrophic to your early career learning opportunities and truly can lead you away from the profession. I told you before, in my 3rd month as a PT, I was questioning whether I had made a career mistake. And I love this field. Another daunting statistic is the typical career for an orthopedic PT is less than 10 years. And I think that's true across different branches of PT, but the number I have from the research is ortho. And I wonder how much of that has to do with the early professional experience and sometimes prioritizing income over cultivation of excellence. So you've got the long-term perspective in mind. I've at least tried to reframe that for you. So you still do have short-term needs though. Let's figure out how to meet those. This is where, and I cannot overstate this, this is where a certified financial planner can be extremely helpful. The website in the first bullet on this slide is an amazing resource to find a certified financial planner near you. The initial consult is almost always free. That gives you the opportunity to try a few and see who you're vibing with, but also allows you to put them on the hot seat a little bit and see if they know what you want them to know. So what do you want them to know? You want them to know a lot about loan repayment and student loans. They should be extremely familiar with what specific programs your loans are eligible for and how they can help you access them. They should also be able to help you get the most out of your benefits, whatever your company offers. So 401k strategies, pre-tax student loans, health savings accounts, things like that. They can really help you, from their area of expertise, maximize the value again that you get out of your initial pay. That'll help your short-term budget, it'll help your long-term budget, and it can help you make difficult decisions. What I've learned, mostly because my wife tells me, is that I am not an expert in all things. And we call a plumber when we have plumbing issues. We call an electrician when we have electrician issues, so that I don't get shocked anymore. I have found that although I fancy myself with my MBA, someone who understands a little bit about finance, there are people who have dedicated their careers to it, and they know a heck of a lot more than me. So I highly encourage you to at least seek out some consultations, even now, and start setting yourself up for the financial needs that you have, both short-term and long-term. So we have covered a ton of ground in a short period of time, and I know we promised you 30 minutes before the Q&A, and I'm going to stick to it. What I'd love to do at this point is see how much you remembered. So who can tell me one of the key recommendations that we've made to this point? Because at 9 o'clock tonight, you're going to want to take some of these things and put them into action. So who can remember at least one of the key recommendations we made to this point to help you overcome those top 3 challenges of transitioning? Throw those in the chat. Coping behaviors, specifically the organization, the making lists. We got the routine, the self-care, scheduled self-care. Perfect. Schedule 3 things you want to do tomorrow. That's part of that prioritization. Self-care, very good. The self-talk, and remember that one specifically was the interrogative self-talk, asking questions that prime your brain rather than just trying to reaffirm. Choosing a career projection and interest over immediate money. Excellent. Okay, I'd say that's pretty darn good for 8:30 on a Wednesday night. Get a financial planner that knows a lot about student loan forgiveness. And there are so many amazing programs right now. So you need someone who is fluent in them to save you time. So I have the whole list here on this screen for you guys. We have been recording the session and we'll be sending it out so you can have it and look back at it. We'll also send the PDF of this presentation so you can see all that. So here are the major bullet items. The affirmation practice, the nightly organization, discipline with protecting your time blocks. These are super important meetings. Nothing can encroach upon them. The self-care, however you define that. Seeking out a work environment that prioritizes your support and growth earlier in your career. Optimize cumulative value from your career, not just short-term money grab. Find yourself a certified financial planner and pursue advanced training early in your career to increase your market value and hopefully your love of PT. So now I am on time. We finished in 30 minutes with the main stuff, but now is the really fun part, at least for you. For me, I'm on the hot seat. I will take literally any question you have about potential challenges, and I'll try to help you with solutions as a new DPT. As I tried to say before, no question is off limits. And this will be the case throughout our 12 sessions together. So we'll start it off with challenges and how we can overcome them. Fire away. I am on the hot seat. All right, first one, what are some red flags when interviewing? Okay, so that depends on the organization. As you can tell by my presentation, I am fully transparent. So questions about salary and benefits and all that stuff, I don't care. You can ask those on your first interview. Doesn't bother me a bit. I'm not stressed about that. For me, though, a big red flag is that you've not spent a lot of time going on our website, reviewing the videos, and learning about who we are as an organization. I never, as someone who hires people, I never want to feel like we're one of your many options. I want to feel like you have specifically chosen to interview with us because of something you've connected with. So at least for me, I would say not being well prepared to talk about what really matters to the organization and how you fit is a massive red flag, at least for me. All right, so what are some red flags to watch for in the employer? I love this one. You must ask for specific details. If you say, I really want mentoring, they'll say, we have mentoring, and you'll go, great. What you should say is, excellent. Can you tell me the structure and organization of your mentoring? And if they say, oh, we're going to assign you someone in your clinic who will answer whatever questions you have, they do not have a mentoring program. A true mentoring program is organized with curriculum, with learning objectives. It is like a course in school. You don't have courses in your DPT program where they're just like, hey, like ask whatever questions you want and, we'll answer them as we go. They say, here's the learning objectives, here's the assignments, here's what's expected of you, and here's the outcomes you should expect. That's what you should look for in orientation, in mentorship, in professional development. Another red flag is if they don't expect you to come on site and shadow as part of your interview process. If they're not offering up their clinics as proof of concept, then it's the wrong place. You have to go see it. I can paint a picture that I believe is accurate in your mind, but what I'm trying to describe and what you're imagining may be totally different. For you to reconcile those two data points, you have to go and see it for real in real life. So that would be a couple red flags for the employer. So you should make sure that they are organized, they actually have focus and curriculum, and it's not just yeah, we'll help you when you need help. And you need to make sure you go and visit, and if they don't offer that up, you're probably going to the wrong place. During my clinicals, I found I rarely have time between patients to do things like hydrate. How do you ensure time during the work to do those things? I was thinking like a beer helmet maybe, but obviously with water, that's probably not professional, so maybe not. I always have a water bottle right next to me. That helps, but I don't think your question is specific to hydration. It's more about time management. And what you'll find is the organization, preparation, and familiarity with the system are going to massively improve your breathing room. A great analogy, and I'm sure as PTs, you're all familiar with sports. A first-year quarterback in the NFL feels like the game is going 150 miles an hour. They make errors, they struggle, they don't feel like they have time to think. Then you look at somebody like Tom Brady, and I'm sorry for those who hate Tom Brady, but then you look at someone like Tom Brady, and it seems like he's just sitting back in the pocket, assessing all of his options, and the game is moving in slow motion. That will absolutely happen for you over time. Now, it doesn't just happen by magic. It happens by discipline, by organization, by mentorship, by structure, by education. It's part of that imposter syndrome, right? Like feeling like things are moving too fast and you don't have time to think or drink or go to the bathroom or anything. That will absolutely get better if you're in the right environment where you're supported and helped. I would go to your CI and explain that and say, hey, like, here's where I am right now. I really need help and structure to organize that. It's part of our curriculum for our students as well as our new hires. So it will get better, I promise. Great questions. Fire away, you got me. I've blocked off till 9:30, but you can hit me with literally whatever question you want. Nothing is off limits. How important are residency programs? That is an excellent question, and that's actually going to be one of the main topics of one of our upcoming webinars. So I'm not going to give away all of it right now, but I will say residency programs are amazing professional accelerators for those who are ready for it. I sound like a fraud when I say this, so take it with a grain of salt. I didn't actually do a residency program. When I joined Jackson Clinics way back in 2007 or 2008, I think it was 2008, we didn't have a residency program yet. I had already signed up for the OCS, like 6 months into my career, I'd signed up for it. And so I was already prepping, but Richard Jackson said, hey, like, I really desperately want to start a residency program. Can you help me? So instead of doing a residency, I took the OCS on my own and got mentorship from Ken Herbal. And then I started a residency program. And what I found in that process was the potential value of residency can be absolutely incredible. With that said, residency is not for everybody. So when we go through that seminar, through that module of this 12-part series, we're going to talk not just about residency, but also residency alternatives and how you can get the most out of your career, even if you're a little gun shy about a residency to start. Great question. How did you manage to maintain relationships while working? That's a great question. A lot of it for me was boundaries and organization. So what I realized very early in my career, actually as a student PT, I realized that if I let it, PT would consume my life. That I would be doing notes all night. I would be studying, and for the OCS, actually, when I went into DPT, but that if you let it, it can be everything. And that's actually not healthy. I am a super passionate PT nerd, but I also need more than just that. Everyone does. You need those relationships. You need other outlets. You need that self-care. So what I did was I basically said, okay, from 5 a.m. to 8 a.m., it's self-care, it's prepping, it's getting my kind of life and responsibilities organized for the morning. From 8 a.m. until 5 p.m., or whatever my schedule was that day, I was 100% physical therapy. I lived it, breathed it, did everything. I hyper focused. And then when my day was done, I shut it off. For that to work, you have to be efficient enough so that you're not constantly falling behind. And that took time and practice. But by doing that, I created space for, consistently affirming my wife and her needs and, my friends and social activities and sports and things like that. I was a real idiot about halfway through my career, as I mentioned, and I started my MBA. So I got full-time job, 2 kids, doing my MBA, and trying to do all this other stuff. It was insane. And that's, I think, when I really got really, really, really good at that compartmentalization. So that's how I did it. And again, it sounds daunting right now, and it's definitely a tough time for you, but I promise you it will get better. All right. What are the most important things you look for in a new grad, new hire? So I actually met with a DPT program earlier today, and they asked the same question. One student actually was like, how heavily do you weigh grades? And I was like, man, for me, for us, for the Jackson Clinics, and we are I haven't explained this part to you yet, but out of our 75 PTs, more than 50 of them have their OCS or their SCS. The ones who don't will in the next year or two. So we have a ridiculous like nerd army of PTs. And not all of them did great in PT school because that's not actually what we look for. What we're looking for is genuine passion, desire to be the best PT that you can possibly be. You don't necessarily have to be the best PT in the world because there's only one, there's only a few, right? But the best you can possibly be, that passion, that authentic drive to be excellent, that is what we're looking for. And through residency and fellowship and mentorship and all that other stuff, we can teach the rest. So as an education institute, we're not afraid of people who need to learn because everybody needs to learn. We're looking for those people who want to be truly great. So I hope I answered your question. That is the number one thing we're looking for. Do you have any suggestions for negotiating salaries and benefits? Yeah, absolutely. So I'll be like fully transparent. And again, we're just getting things kicked off. So I don't want to give away too much for future things. But in our interview process, we tell you exactly what the base salary is going to be. And that base salary, for us at least, isn't something that you can negotiate. But we've got a merit-based pay program after that where you get commission and you get profit share every single month. So we've got new grads making up to $90,000 a year as a brand new grad because they're kicking butt and they're earning it. We love this merit-based pay program because someone who's really living our values and caring for our patients at the highest possible level will consistently earn more than those who aren't. And for them, that's affirming, right? Those who are really standing out are getting rewarded for that. So for us, what we'll say is, hey, here's all the ways that you can earn as much as you want. We're going to balance that by saying, and remember, you still need to have a work-life balance. You still need to dive into education. There's more to it. Here's how you earn the most in your career. So that's typically how we work on it. For many companies, they're offering signing bonuses right now because the market is pretty competitive. You absolutely can try to negotiate with anybody. For us, you'll be able to get more on the merit-based pay, but for other companies, I'm sure there's definitely some wiggle room here. What I would do is probably wait until later in the interview or maybe even the second interview for that, because first what you need to know is this the right culture? I never want you to think about salary and benefits until you first are positive that you could see yourself in that culture. Then, if you're like, hey, this is an amazing fit, I think I would totally love it here. I think I have a lot to bring to the team. Now let's talk about salary and benefits. Here are my short-term financial needs. Here's my long-term goals. How can we sort something out? Great question. Next one, with the new sports residency at TJC, is there an opportunity for certain locations to specialize in sports and ortho? Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that one up. So our ortho residency has been around for about 14 years, has been accredited the whole time. Our sports residency is seeking accreditation. We're a candidate right now, and we'll be starting, we will be accredited in less than 12 months. So I'm really excited. And what we've done is we've built a scalable program. So one of the problems with sports residency across the country is that it's so competitive that there's 100 resumes for 5 slots at a university program. For us, as many openings as we have in the company can be residents. We have no limit to the number of residents that we can take, whether it's ortho or sports. So that for us is a very exciting thing, and it can be in any of our clinic locations. We have a few that are extremely well suited that have like turf in the clinic or are part of a sport and health where you can, or a One Life Fitness where you can like take patients to the pool or go up and play catch with 180 feet in a basketball court, or I had a semi-pro soccer player ripping shots at me 12 weeks after their MCL was on the mend. So we've got the facilities to make those really fun and engaging programs. So yeah, any location, and we can scale them really nicely. So that's nice. There's no limitation for our program, at least. Great question. Well, I want to save some of these for the upcoming webinars. The next one, we're going to have you save the date. The next one is March 24th, so just a couple weeks away. It's going to be 8:30 again. I'll have 30 minutes of content, and then you'll have another chance to just fire away with questions. So start thinking of them between now and then. We tried also to keep this session a little bit more intimate. So we had a bunch of people reach out. I wanted to keep it fairly small for this one to get launched and, reward the early adopters. But if you had friends or colleagues who reached out and weren't able to get in, let them know that we're going to open it up on the 24th. So all comers are welcome. If you had friends who didn't hear about it and you think would love this series, please tell them, and we'll get you guys signed up. And in the meantime, I've got my contact information here, and we'll be sure to share that in the follow-up as well. One of the values of being in this webinar series is you can literally email me anytime with any question. And I know you're like, oh, now that feels weird. Like, I don't want to. Literally, feel free to email me. I want to be a concierge. I want to be a mentor to you. Whatever questions you have, I'm honestly here to help. So don't hesitate. Don't feel shy to reach out. So that's it. We've covered it. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Oh, sorry, there was one more question. Can you talk a little bit about Con Ed? I guess how it works, how much to do. Yes, absolutely. So your state, whatever state you're licensed in, is going to require you to do a certain number of continuing education hours every 2 years to maintain your license. Depends on the state as to how many hours and exactly how those are structured. In Virginia, it's around 20 hours, and it's every 2 years. Just for context, the average PT in the Jackson clinics is doing like 100 hours in that 2-year period. So there's no shortage of opportunity here to do it. It's really, really, really easy to check that box. What I would really encourage you to do, though, is think about more than checking the box. Great continuing education is education that changes your practice. That when you go to work on Monday morning, you have knowledge and skills that you can apply to your patient caseload, and you know how to do it. That's what great Con Ed is. You can Zoom through MedBridge or some other online thing, get your CEUs and check the box. But that's not why you've spent 20 years of your life in school. That's not why you've been grinding through DPT program. And when you have that degree, that's not the level that you're going to want to aspire to. So all Con Ed is definitely not created equal. And as you go in the process, shoot me some emails. Happy to open a dialogue or even jump on a one-on-one call with you and talk you through some of the great resources out there. Wherever you go in your whatever company you join, you'll definitely want to vet that too, because it's a big one. That's important. All right. I want to thank you guys again. Thank you for being my first crew. I apologize to those who weren't able to get into this exclusive launch, but encourage them to join this next one on the 24th, and have a great rest of the night. Thanks, guys.